Hi, my name is Pip. This is my review of Aftermath, the movie and the book by Rhidian Brook. As I've said before in another video, I have actually abandoned the book halfway through. I'm listening to it on an audiobook and I lost my way. And I lost my way because it got a little bit rough there for a while, and the voice I didn't love for some of the characters, and it was driving me a little bit crazy, and it kind of was distorting the way I was interpreting the book and my joy listening to the book. But also it was just like, I'll get into it when I talk about the movie, but I'm going to try and finish the audiobook, and so I'm going to film a review for that part of it after at some other date, and I'm going to put these two videos together. But I actually watched Aftermath, the movie, last night. And I had high hopes because I find Alexander Skarsgard is generally fairly reliable as an actor, and I love Keira Knightley in period pieces because she just looks the part. And you know, I was aware of some of the criticism of the movie going in, that, you know, in a post-war era no one would dress as nicely or have as much money as them. But I can't say that that worried me, because this house that they were living in was pretty spectacular. So for me, the variations, I'm probably like a third of the way through the book. The variations between the movie and the book, I'm not sure that they were favorable. Just in case you haven't seen it, haven't read it, and you want to, there are going to be some spoilers in this video. The movie opens with Keira Knightley arriving on a train in Germany, and she is sitting opposite this lady and a small boy, and the boy is reading some information about how it's important to not fraternize with the Germans and things like that. Now in the book, that child is actually her surviving son. So she has two sons, one who was killed as a result of a bomb in the war, and the other one is the surviving one, and she is deeply depressed and traumatized at the loss of her son. And in the book, I kind of felt like she was neglecting her other son a little bit and quite disinterested in him. And so I assumed automatically that this little boy was going to be her second son, and then she just left him on the train and we never saw that kid again. So I guess in the movie she only has one son. Then in the book there's quite a bit of build-up that she is anxious about seeing her husband again. She hasn't really seen him much since the war started at all, and he is equally anxious, and it's kind of written from multiple perspectives, so you do get like quite a bit of a look into the mental health status of both of them and their anxiety about their reunion. But in the movie she seemed to be quite happy to see him, and you know, obviously it was a tiny bit awkward because they haven't seen each other for a while, but it was nowhere near as awkward as in the book. Nowhere near. Like in the book he is kind of, you know, he's an awkward guy and it's an awkward situation, and you know, you haven't seen your husband for, let's call it, a couple of years basically, and he's obviously still attracted to her and wants to reunite and get back to married life, but he's not at all pushy about it or anything like that, and she just does not want a bar of him in the book. And yet in the movie, like, she seemed like she missed him. She seemed like she was happy to see him. Like, it was to the point there when I'm going, oh, I know she's hooking up with Alexander Skarsgård later. I don't, why? Because she didn't seem like, you know, she was coming to revive a dead relationship or anything. Like, so it kind of, it didn't build up to the affair with Alexander Skarsgård terribly well. In the book, she's also, I would say, angrier and certainly ruder to the staff, and much less inclined to speak any German or to concede on anything. And you can, like, I mean, there is a little bit of, you know, it's not everybody's fault what happened in the war. You know, you can't hold it against every German. But you can kind of understand it because she's so gutted over the death of her son, and rightly so. And so she blames the other Germans basically for the death of her son. And so she's holding a lot of residual anger over that. And she's also holding a lot of anger over that towards her husband. And, you know, so there's a lot of anger. Whereas I feel like in the book, that was, I mean, sorry, in the movie that was kind of brushed over a little bit. So she just, like, they just made her seem a bit intermittently bitchy, and other times she was totally fine. Like, it just didn't have the same consistency as the book does so far. And this is interesting for me because generally I have seen a movie first before reading the book, and I know I didn't finish the book yet, but it's interesting actually watching a movie second when you've read the book first. The other thing I found really odd in the movie was the first kiss between Alexander Skarsgård, Herr Lubert, and Mrs. Morgan, which is Keira Knightley's character. And I get that he was, you know, trying to provoke her to kick them out, and so he kissed her to give her a reason to throw them out. But it kind of came out of nowhere, and then the fact that later, like literally a couple minutes later, she was like, oh, don't apologize for that, and all of a sudden she was into him and they were basically fucking on the table, except that someone walked in and so they had to stop. Didn't make any sense to me. Like, it just kind of came out of nowhere, and then poof, all of a sudden Keira Knightley is all in with Skarsgård's character. Mrs. Morgan is on board the Herr Lubert train, and I mean, her husband is a wet blanket and he is never around, and I get that he is dull and boring, but she's gone from being like pretty excited to see him and to return and quite affectionate with him to having an affair with a guy she hated 5 minutes ago. I felt like I had whiplash, and I actually said to my friend, Jesus, that was a quick turnaround. But my friend really liked it, but she hadn't read the book. Not that I finished the book yet. I think they did a pretty good job of kind of capturing the mood and the depression and the attitudes of various people on both sides of the Germans and the Brits. You know, that some people were sympathetic to the surviving Germans and the hardships that they then experienced, and that it, you know, wasn't everybody's fault that happened. And there were also then the people who thought everybody was guilty and everyone was still pro-Hitler. And so it was interesting to watch. It was beautiful cinematography, and I just love snow, so we don't get it in Australia really. So I just love the idea of seeing those seasonal variations in movies, so that really works for me. I loved the costumes, and as always, Keira Knightley looks beautiful in period pieces. But the movie left me wanting quite a bit. Like, there was chemistry, and there was tension, but it wasn't the right kind of chemistry and tension. It was kind of like, yeah, I mean, Keira and Alexander work together. They've got good vibes. They look good. They feel good together, but I wasn't shipping them, you know, and I wasn't shipping her and the husband either. I didn't really care if any of them got together. So it was kind of a weird movie because I didn't feel like I had any emotional attachment to any of them ending up together. And then when she, again, spoiler, when she goes back to her husband in the end, I was just kind of like, okay, you filmed that grief expression between the two grieving parents beautifully, finally. Like, you really like let both characters stretch their wings, and her husband seemed like genuinely distressed. But I don't think that one hug is enough to repair a relationship that broken. I mean, it's a start, but I just don't see how that was enough to make her go from being in love and ready to run away with Alexander Skarsgård to ditching him on the train and going home. It was a little weird. I still liked the movie, but I didn't love it. I would probably give it like a 5.5 out of 10. I'm certainly not in any hurry to see it again, but I would totally survive watching it again. And I might actually watch it again after I've finished the book. But it didn't blow my hair back. The fact that I didn't want the primary characters to end up together in any of the couples that were optional choices was kind of problematic for me. Anyway, but we'll see what I think of the rest of the book. I just got home from work and I'm tired as hell and I'm ready for this week to be over, and it's only Wednesday. But I thought I would finish off my review of Aftermath by Rhidian Brook. So you've already seen my review of the movie, and this is my review of the book. Molly. This is Molly, my dog. So the book, I already said that I had put it down for a little while and had been struggling with it. I have since tried to continue on with the book, and I pushed through for another couple of hours, but I've stopped. So it's a did not finish for me. So I didn't finish it because all the reasons that I didn't like it enough to continue listening initially were all still there. The guy that Frida hooks up with, I don't even know or care what his name was. The voice of that guy was so irritating. I found it hard to listen to. I still had no desire for Mrs. Morgan to rekindle things with Mr. Morgan, nor did I care if she hooked up with Herr Lubert. The whole love triangle scenario is like a really big part of this book and the plot, and I just found myself wanting to quote Erika Jane, "I gave 0 fucks."
How many fucks do I give? How many fucks do I give? None, not 1, 0, 0, 0, die!
Basically, I stopped listening to the audiobook because I really didn't care what the outcome was for the characters. And when I watched the movie, I thought, well, okay, there's not a lot of chemistry. Okay, I'm not loving the storyline, but the setting is beautiful, the actors are fantastic, and the costumes are awesome. And I thought that maybe the book would come good at the end once Herr Lubert and Mrs. Morgan get together. That happened, like I stopped at 2 hours to go on the audiobook and they just hooked up and I literally didn't care. Not only did I not care, I didn't actually think that there was much chemistry in the lead up to. Like, the best thing that I can think is that she'd wanted to get it on with her husband, who had once again left the building and gone to work, and so then she just hooked up with the next nearest dude. My other issue with the book is that it follows multiple characters' perspectives, which I generally don't have an issue with, but I feel like it was changing perspectives mid-chapter, and while I was never confused about whose point of view we were in, I just didn't care. I didn't care about the other characters' point of views, and I really didn't care what happened to any of the characters, to be totally honest. The only one I vaguely liked was Edmund, the little boy, and yeah, I just didn't finish it. And I don't want to shit on this book too much because I would not like that if someone did that to me, but in the same breath, I really didn't like this book. I never got into this book. It was a battle. The person reading the audiobook was less than awesome, and I couldn't get into the book, and I never really cared about the outcome, which is kind of problematic. That being said, I'm sure there are lots of people who really enjoyed this book, and I'd love to hear if you liked it, why you liked it. Maybe there's something that I missed because I just wasn't concentrating enough because I couldn't get into it. But I'd still be interested to hear your perspective on the book. But this is one of the reasons I actually have no interest really in reviewing books in the same genre that I write in, which is young adult, new adult fantasy fiction, because I feel a bit weird reviewing authors that work in the same category as me. Unless I really, really love the book, then I'm probably going to tell you about it. But this one I did not love. The movie I felt pretty about. So I hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and let me know down below in the comments what you thought of Aftermath, either the movie version or the book version or both.